Hello, my dorky daddies. How are you guys doing? Over the past few months, guys, I have gotten so lucky and so blessed. I've been able to interview my favorite editors, and it's just been amazing. I've had so much fun doing it. But today I wanted to talk about one line from one interview that really has stuck with me. It's impacted me. And it's this line from Patrick Sterling.
I maybe to the point of loathe conversations about what is and is not intuitive in video editing software. I think to an absurd degree, what anyone thinks is intuitive is how did it work the first time I learned it in the first piece of software I learned it in. And that becomes intuitive when it's just like, no, it's different.
Interesting, right? Interesting. Now, maybe you agree with this, maybe you don't, but I think your first natural question is, Jake, why do you care about this line? What's so special about this line? It's an interesting take. What's so special? I think the reason that I haven't been able to get it out of my gray matter is because it was challenging a core belief of mine. And I think it still might be. I'm not totally sure. I think that's the point of this video, is that I think I've come around to the point where I somewhat agree with Patrick and I somewhat don't. Let me explain. If you guys haven't been around for a while, you're probably here thinking, oh, Jake's the DaVinci Resolve editing guy. He talks about Final Cut here and there, but it's all about DaVinci Resolve. And yeah, of course it is. DaVinci Resolve is amazing. It's got so many tools that I love talking about. It's empowering me to create videos. But I started with Final Cut Pro. And like many people, I have always held Final Cut Pro up on this pedestal as being so Apple-y, so intuitive, so easy to use. And then Patrick hits me with this line. He says that he doesn't think software is necessarily more intuitive or not. And here's the thing. I do think I disagree with him. I come from a software background. I do think there is more intuitive software, but I think that the intuitive software that we think is intuitive is based on the main point he was making. That is, whatever we are used to is intuitive. And so, how far back we want to peel back these layers, intuitive to humans is probably something that, spatially moves from, especially in Western culture, from left to right. Maybe it's represented with, top to bottom. Like those kind of concepts are maybe more intuitive. But I don't think video editing software is intuitive. If you've never done it before, if you were to give Final Cut or DaVinci Resolve to someone who's never used them, they would look at you like you're crazy. Right? Wouldn't they? And I think the funniest point out of all of this, I think the thing that has really matured my opinion on this is that for the longest time I was like, Final Cut is the best. Magnetic timeline. All of this is the right way to do it. It's so intuitive. It's so much better. And then I keep talking to more editors, and editors that started with track-based editing, editors that have always been doing track-based editing, they typically react poorly to Final Cut Pro and the magnetic timeline. And to even further cement those opinions of what I'm ultimately arriving at in this video, I do believe that even though I love the magnetic timeline, I still think Final Cut is an amazing piece of software. I think it has so much potential. I may make another video talking about that with all of the Apple Intelligence stuff going on. That doesn't deserve quotes. It looks really cool. But I do think that Final Cut is awesome, and I do think the magnetic timeline is great. But now that I have really learned track-based editing with Resolve for multiple years now, I mean, it's been a long journey. There are so many benefits to track-based editing, and there's like all of the resistance I get from people that are like, oh, Final Cut's weird. Oh, I tried Final Cut. I didn't like it. Like, it all makes sense to me now because I feel very good in both. And yeah, ultimately, I think I'm saying today, I think Patrick was onto something. And I think that's why I thought it was so interesting and so cool. It's such a unique perspective because you don't hear it very often. I do think that general core intuitive concepts exist in software. Again, I don't really know how out in the weeds I want to try to go there, but I do think that video editing software in general is not intuitive. It's a weird thing to do. It takes time. You've got to learn it. It's taken me forever to learn how to do it. It took me forever how to do it in Final Cut. The point is I think that if you are someone who uses Final Cut Pro and truly believes that the magnetic timeline is the greatest thing to ever happen, and I do think it is really awesome. I'm not trying to belittle it. I think that give Resolve a try. Maybe try to flex that muscle. Because after years of doing it, it really is just what you prefer. What do you like better? What works for you? And you may ultimately arrive at that you still like the magnetic timeline, and that's great. But I just think that DaVinci is so hard to ignore right now, and I wouldn't ignore it just because it's track-based if you're coming from Final Cut. And again, guess what? If you're someone like me, if you're a big, fat, freaking dorky, nerdy dad, you can use both. Again, I haven't been using Final Cut hardly at all lately because Resolve has just got so many tools that I need and use all the time. But you can do both. There's no rule saying you have to pick one and stamp it on your forehead and be like, well, now I'm a Resolve guy. Champion this statement. You are an editing guy or gal, doesn't matter what you use what you like. So anyway, did this video make sense? I'm not sure, but anyway, guys, I hope that made sense. Felt a little all over the place, but I just thought it was such an interesting opinion. It really kind of made me question my beliefs, which I love. I love when that happens. I love when people pose questions that I kind of go, ooh, that's interesting. I like that. I've always loved that. So anyway, again, real quick before we go, I want to thank our awesome members. You guys are the best. They are just the backbone of the Dorky Dad editing family. They get weekly Monday videos going into, editing techniques behind the scenes. I did a behind the scenes video on the Furiosa video last week. Go check that out. So thank you to our members. You guys are the best. And with that, guys, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Comment down below what you think about this. Hit that like button, subscribe, do all the things. And I'm going to let you go because I have got to get back to editing. Later. I can smell them. The Final Cut bros. They're coming for my throat in this one.